Principal Officer of the GIPF, and our esteemed Chairperson of the GIPF Board, Ms. Nillian Mulemi. And also joining us is Mr. Faniel Kisting, who is the Vice Chairperson of the Board. The aim of the session this afternoon, and while we are reaching out to our stakeholders, is to really unpack and officially launch the recently published annual report of the GIPF, and that it being an integrated report to say. We are here to have a conversation about our performance, about the challenges, and the opportunities so encountered during the year under review, which is 2022. And also looking forward to the last year of performance under this particular strategy period and beyond. So having said that, I really welcome our colleagues from the media who have joined us, a few executives of the GIPF, and more broadly, the stakeholders who are joining us on our social media platform, because we are streaming this live on our YouTube and also on our Facebook page. And just to maybe set the stage, Mr. Nuyoma, could you, since 2018, the GIPF has gone the route of reporting in an integrated fashion. Why this style? And what is the significance of that for the fund and for reporting in this manner?
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiramba, and good evening to the viewers, our key stakeholders, our members, especially our pensioners for whom we are created to serve, and also to wish them a beautiful, healthy, and prosperous new year. The integrated report stems from the need to report holistically in terms of international financial reporting standards, and also in terms of the codes to which we subscribe. That is the governance codes, the NAM code, as well as the King codes on corporate governance. But also out of our own volition, we believe that it is fair that our members and key stakeholders do get a full perspective of not only the annual financial statements that traditionally has been what has been reported on, where we do the accounting and all that, but to go beyond where is value created and the purpose of why we are here, and to report on the strategic initiatives that have been carried out during the given year, looking at the business model, and also look at the impact it has broadly on our stakeholders, but also in the case of GIPF, considering its size, the impact it has on the socio-economic situation in the country. So in that respect, this report gives you that perspective of that holistic what we do. And it's very interesting, and I would like to encourage our stakeholders to access it on our website, or those who are lucky to get a physical copy. Anyway, it's a beautiful report, to have access to it and enjoy reading it, to appreciate the length and depth of what GIPF is all about.
Thank you very much, CEO. We will definitely come back so that you can get into the depth of the report at a later stage. Now, turning to our chairperson of the board, Ms. Nillian Mulemi. This is your report as the person at the helm of this institution in terms of governance. It is also your second year now in your tenure as chairperson of the board. What has been your vision in this leadership role since you took office?
Thank you very much, Amy. First and foremost, let me recognize the CEO and the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, who is also the vice chairperson, for their presence, and also everybody else that has joined us virtually, for several trustees that are here today, and all our stakeholders. Compliments for the new year. It's been a hard 2 years for us, both from a COVID perspective and also the energy markets that pushed inflation very high. So I wish you good health and God's blessings. Yes, we are happy today that we are launching our annual report, but at the same time, very grateful that the board reappointed me to serve for the second term as the chairperson of the board. And this really speaks to the fact that it's a difficult task, but the board recognized that together we can work as a team, and they've elected me as the person that will support the work that we are going to do. First and foremost, on a personal level, my vision is to make sure that we encourage fellow females in Namibia to take such roles. We are available and willing to support those that are willing to undertake such roles. The GIPF is able to demonstrate that as a team, both females and males can work together, collaborate, and realize the vision of the organization. Secondly, for the GIPF, the size that we are, it's important that we put in measures to reach our stakeholders. So one of the key visions that we are going to drive going forward is to make sure that our stakeholders access our services. Very happy to report that most recently we've opened 4 physical offices. We intend to roll out more, funds permitting, but also we are going to use technology to support that our members access us. We understand and appreciate that there are challenges when we use technology because this availability is driven by those that are responsible for it. So we understand that it may not be possible that the use of technology is accessible to all, but we appreciate that this is where the world is going. So we will exploit what technology offers us in order to increase access. Also, one of the key visions for the fund that we would like to exploit is to improve our internal controls. The size that we are also requires that our internal controls are strengthened. So we will work together as the board to ensure that where there are gaps in internal controls, we will do what we can to make sure that we mitigate them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I turn to our Vice Chairperson of the board. This is also your inaugural tenure to this board, which is a position within the board succession planning of the fund, which is quite applaudable. Mr. Kisting, you also oversee the Audit and Risk Committee, as so nicely put by the chairperson of the board. Can you tell us how has the fund fared in this space during the year under review?
Thank you very much, Mr. Shirama, for the opportunity to address our esteemed members and also those that has followed the link on various social media. Good evening to you all. The Audit Committee has the role of protecting, guarding, as essentially enshrined in our motto of to grow and to guard. The Audit Committee fulfills that specific role of guarding. And over my tenure, we have taken that role very seriously. And we have implemented various defense mechanisms to ensure that that role is not taken for granted, but it is lived out by the organization. Now, what does that role encompass? Basically, the Audit Committee is there to ensure that there are sound internal controls that is working effectively in the organization. The chair lady has already alluded to the fact that controls is important. It's one of the vision statements that she's made a little bit earlier, and we take that role very seriously. That is our defense mechanism, number one, or we call it defense line, number one. Secondly, to monitor the controls, to see that it's working effectively, operating efficiently, effectively, we need to have a fully fledged internal audit function that will be able to look at the controls, to see that they're operating, and to keep management on its toes. The third line of defense is our external auditors. The role of the committee in this is that we ensure that our internal auditors stay independent. They stay objective, and also that they carry out the function of external audit in a very effective and efficient manner. Another role of an audit committee is to ensure that what we present in our annual report here in front of us is accurate and is complete and serves the community in which we operate with integrity. It is necessary that we ensure that that information that we portray in the annual report of the GIPF is reliable and also credible. As a committee, of course, we oversee the audit function. One of those objectives of the audit committee is always to have a clean opinion. In other words, an unqualified audit opinion on which the members can rely. If we have an unqualified opinion as one of our objectives, then we can ensure that members can sleep peacefully because they know that the money is looked after and protected. One important element or defense line of an organization as big as the GIPF is the enterprise risk management function. And as an audit committee, and in my tenure, we ensured that we establish a fully fledged risk management division which directly reports to the CEO, the office of the CEO, but also have a reporting line to the audit committee. We ensure that we cover the top risks in the organization and that we ensure that there are proper mitigation taken to address those risks that pose a threat to the sustainability of the GIPF. Furthermore, we ensure that all the information that's contained in this GIPF integrated report is factual and is accurate. The last one is we oversee also IT governance. The GIPF is a fund, the biggest pension fund in Namibia, and is IT driven. As a committee, we have to ensure that there are sound principles that guides our IT processes and also our software, protection of our software. It's also important that we acquire the necessary infrastructure that is needed to deliver top-class service to our valued members, but also ensure that our members' data is protected and that our systems are available at least 98% of the time so that members can access their benefits and their contribution statements at all times.
Mr. Kisting, maybe while we are still at you, what are some of the significant risks that faced the fund during the reporting period? Just maybe that you could elaborate on a little bit.
The most important risk that is facing the fund is to ensure that the fund remains sustainable. That is our objective, and the risk that goes through that is to see that we generate sufficient returns on our investments to ensure that the fund becomes sustainable. A risk that also goes with that is cyber risks. Cyber risks is preeminent in the whole world. It's the number one threat for most of the organizations because we know that protection of information is essential and also to ensure that there are no fraudulent transactions in that sphere. So cyber risk is one of the risks that are faced by the GIPF. Another important risk is the the continuous change of our legislative sphere, in that we have the Film Act coming soon. I know that it has been postponed several times because of the various operating measures that are not in place, but the Film Bill or Act will have a significant impact on the GIPF, and we have to be ready. Ready we have as a committee ensured that when this Act is introduced, that our systems are in place to deal with the requirements of this Act. Another risk is disruptions that may happen to the fund. We've seen with COVID the tremendous disruptions that will occur if you're not ready for it. And therefore we have to ensure that our risk procedures are robust to ensure that we identify, especially black and blue swan events, beforehand, so that we can protect the GIPF assets. The other element of that risk is to ensure that if there are disruptions, that we can still continue as a fund giving our services. And that's why we must have contingency plans in place, business continuity plans in place. We need to have disaster recovery sites so that if something hits us in the cyberspace, that we have an alternative site that we can operate from to continue to deliver excellent services to our members. Data quality is an important aspect. If our data is wrong, it means that we will pay wrongly to our pensioners and members. We have engaged, and maybe the CEO will talk later about it, on our own biometric system, which will help us to ensure that the quality of our data will improve. Previously, we were dependent on the NEM-Post biometric system, but last year we have budgeted for funds to acquire our own. It has been implemented, and as I sit here, I understand that everything is running smoothly. Members' verification is taking place as we speak. Of course, there are other risks in the investment sphere. Selecting quality, reputable investment managers is our priority. If we select the wrong investment managers, means that our funds will not grow as anticipated, and we might lose some of our funds. So the committee must ensure that there are procedures for electing the right investment managers, and last year we've already started as a board to see to it that there are proper policies in place to ensure that we appoint the right caliber and reputable investment managers, both locally and internationally. One big risk that we're facing is the fact that our benefits are currently exceeding our contributions, meaning that the contributions can't fund the benefits as they occur on its own. This is something that worries us a lot. I'm sure that all trustees are having sleepless nights when it comes to this. So our investment committee was tasked to ensure that we appoint the quality investment managers and set the right asset allocation model to ensure that there is proper diversification in our investments to ensure that we protect, but also at the same time grow. For the past 3 years or so, we have been reliant heavily on our investment income to sort of help us where the contribution shortfall is evident. So we make use of our investment returns to pay also then the benefits that we need to do. That is in short, Edmund, the risks that are faced by the fund.
Okay. Maybe staying on the governance issues, I just quickly want to turn to the chairperson. During the review period now, as contained in this report, what were some of the key developments and activities that the board was really tasked with that you could elaborate on?
Thank you, Edwin. The board was very busy during the period under review. First and foremost, I'm happy to report that the board operated a full complement. So we had all board members that were supposed to be on the board fully appointed. So we operated at the full complement of the board. Very happy to report that all those that we knew were provided with the necessary induction, and where we saw opportunities to train the board, we also make sure that the board were given an opportunity to be trained so that they have updated knowledge on what is happening in the pension fund industry, as well as, most important, giving them an opportunity to network with peers within the industry. I'm also very happy to report that during the same period, the board undertook a board evaluation, and the outcome of that board evaluation was analyzed, and where we saw gaps, the board put in measures to make sure that the gaps that we observed were closed. One of the gaps that we picked up, which was staring in our eyes, we knew about it, but it's always nice and important when an evaluation confirms it, is a matter of succession plan. We recognized as a board that it's important to make sure that we put in measures of succession planning. And as a result of that, I'm very happy to report that the board already took action and appointed, through policies that we developed as a result of that finding, a chairperson of the board. That is very important, that matters of corporate governance business take place at all material times in the event that the substantive board chairperson is not available, or when you are planning for succession, you know that you can rely on the chairperson if they are so available. I'm also very happy to report that the board continued as part of its role to set the tone on ethical leadership. Corporate governance requires that as board members we dictate that at all material times we apply due diligence and, of course, ethical considerations in all our dealings, and the board continued doing that. I'm also happy to report that the board, in the spirit of ethical consideration and improved governance, we approved a couple of policies. I'll just mention a few here. You're very welcome to go through the report. It will give you more information. We approved the succession planning and talent management policy. We revised and approved the whistleblower policy. We revised and approved a couple of internal policies. Some of them pertain to how we manage our investments, as alluded by the chairperson of the audit committee. I'm also very pleased to report that some of the key decisions that the board made, which will have an impact in the economy, one of them is we approved, after our rules were amended and approved, the pension-backed home loan. I already launched the pension-backed home loan. We are now busy with the administrative processes related to it so that we can launch it. You can imagine that such a policy, for it to be launched, or a benefit to be launched, it requires that all stakeholders are consulted. It has an impact on the taxation system of the country, but also it has an impact on the administration of the human resources governance of the government. So once all those consultations are completed, we should be able to fully launch it. I'm also happy to report that we undertook our actuarial valuation report for the 3 years ending the 31st of March 2021 that we also launched. We've also automated our ethics management modules. We are also happy to report that we granted our pensioners a 4.62% increment for the financial year 2022-2023. It needed to happen in the financial year that ended so that we are able to implement it in the new financial year. And most importantly, our assets are managed using the asset liability modeling. This model assists us to understand our liabilities and also come up with a strategy that we can use to invest our assets. The board is required annually to review that model and approve so that management can then implement that model. So I'm very pleased to report that that model was already approved and management was now tasked to implement it. In a nutshell, those would be the key highlights that I would point out in terms of the work that the board undertook. Again, our viewers joining us virtually, the media present here, the integrated report is a tool to understand the nature of business of the GIPF and some of the successes and challenges we experience, but most importantly, it becomes your factual tool that you can use to extract data, integrate, and report. We are available as the board and management where there's a need for more information to provide more information so that the reporting that results out of it is factual.
Thank you, Chairperson. And during your intro remarks, CEO, you talked about the depth of our performance. I would like you to spend some time now and look at how would you characterize the performance of the fund during 2022 when you look at our core themes of sustainability, service excellence, employer of choice, and also how we fared in terms of compliance, because we operate in a very, very highly regulated space. Could you shed a little bit of light on our performance with a little bit more statistics? We will take a short break, and then when we come back, we will take that answer. Okay. I think, CEO, back to you. Welcome back, everyone, and hopefully you enjoyed the short break. We left off where we had asked the CEO to shed a little bit of more light now specifically on the fund's performance. How would you characterize the way we performed against our set themes of sustainability, excellent service, employer of choice? I know the vice chair of the board talked a little bit about our audit and risk space, but how about compliance? How did we do during the year under review?
Yeah, thank you, and welcome back. And perhaps before that, I would just like to add to what our chairperson has said regarding the full composition of the board. And that is not only full composition, and I think the chair may be out of being humble, is the excellent skill mix that we have. If you were to look at the caliber, what we have on the board, you see such a good result and good performance, and have made the fund as a corporate citizen among so many, not only here but also globally. Regarding the performance during the year, first of all is to understand the context. We are 2021-22 is the year under review. 2021, we were still in the midst and grip of the unfortunate pandemic called COVID. And 22, we started re-emerging and life slowly returning to normalcy. So that has to be understood in that context. So many economies were still under strain, ours not spared, and all those who play in it, including economic actors like ourselves, also had to bear the brunt. But fortunately, due to the policies that the trustees, the fund has set, we have been able to continue on a growth trajectory that is positive. Let me start, first of all, with the pillars that we focus on. Maybe for the external stakeholders there, in the strategic plan of the fund, and we work on a basis of a plan, clear strategic plan. We have been on a 5-year strategic plan where certain targets are set on the basis of what we wish to achieve. And in that regard, 4 pillars were identified as critical to achieve the objective, the key objectives of the fund. And those are the ones that our facilitator has highlighted. The first one is the pillar on sustainability. And this, to me, is those pillars you need to have under control. And I like saying you cannot distribute poverty. This is the pillar where we have to have our wealth creation, on which basis we are able to sustain the operations, and most important, to keep to the promise that we have made to our members, and that is to pay them on a monthly basis what they are entitled to. I'm glad to say we have seen during that period a good growth again of 8.6%, and the fund has grown from asset base of 135 billion Namibian dollars to 147 billion Namibian dollars. And under the circumstances I highlighted earlier, we deem it as a reasonable and good growth, because we are able to sustain our promise of covering our liability. And secondly, the chairperson has highlighted that there was an actuarial evaluation performed during that time. And we as a pension fund need to ensure as administrators and most important trustees that we have our liabilities under control and that our assets are able to meet those liabilities, short, medium, and long term. In that respect, the funding level that is, if you were to take the liabilities and the assets, we are well above. In other words, it's almost like the asset test to check, or they call it litmus test, to check if we are able to meet our liabilities in the long run or not, by a factor of 13.6%. It's very important to contextualize this. At a global level, if you were to do research, a lot of pension funds are well below 100 in terms of their funding level. In other words, they operate on a deficit basis. So we are proud that we have been able to sustain the fund in that positive trajectory. We also have seen successes in terms of the basis on which we are established. That is the service that we deliver. The board has challenged us. If some of the pensioners, our esteemed stakeholders who have been beneficiary of this fund, they can attest to it. First of all, at no point, even during the time of the pandemic, did we miss out a date of payment, which we usually do on the 28th of each month. We pay on time, but what has become perhaps relevant to this period, we human beings perhaps, or humanity, like to be subjected to some form of crisis, and then we can get better. Here we have been able to sharpen our information systems, that we are able to pay much more faster, much more efficiently, and that has enabled us to do bulk payments with greater ease, despite the pandemic being at play. So in that respect, I'm very happy that we have kept that. And to move further is on the issue of turnaround times. There was a time in the history of this fund, not long ago, that it was not uncommon if a member has got a bereavement and they wish to have funeral payments, that it could take days, sometimes up to a week. But we have managed, and I thank the board for having put us on our toes and said, management, staff, you need to do better. We have been able to turn around those turnaround times from days to hours. And we are moving to a situation of real time. In other words, while a member comes and make a claim here at the fund, especially funerals, we want to see real time. Before you leave, it clicks in your pocket on the cell phone. And I believe it can be done, and we are almost there. We have seen with regard to the other benefit payments, like retirement, it is not right, and it should not be, that a member retires in a given month, say in February, but then you have a break of income for the next 2 months or so. No, it shouldn't be. And I can happily say we have broken that, and we are able to pay reliably within the period that a member retires. And I have it on good authority, looking at the statistics. On average, within 14 to 21 days, we do pay out. And then the next month, we fall onto the monthly payment. These are significant strides that we need to continue to build on. And that's why one of the objectives of the fund, we have this claim that we want to become a leading pension globally. It's exactly that. We want to be counted among the very best. And others have to learn from us how to do it even. And we are going that way. We have no doubt about it. We focus a lot on governance. Governance is the steering wheel of the organization. We have an excellent board, and I thank God, obviously, for giving the wisdom to the appointing authority to give us such a good board that is having high level of integrity, but also the wisdom of steering this huge ship responsibly and in the right direction. So, but that being said, the chairperson has already highlighted what the board has done in the governance arena. One of the key highlights that came out has been the whistleblower policy that was adopted during the year under review, and most important, how to operationalize that through the ethics help desk, where any whistleblower or anybody who wishes to report any wrongdoing that is committed by GIPF officials or associates or whatever can go reliably and comfortably go on that anonymous line, call, or do whatever they need to do and report the matter accordingly. So we have done that, and I'm very happy that we have done that to ensure that we give the confidence to our stakeholders that they have a shoulder where they can go without having any fear of reprisal. We also would like to report with regard to the issues of our own people's management issues. It's one of our pillars also, that at the end of the day, we do all these things, we need to have a good team. We particularly focus on one area, and that is leadership growth. All the managers and supervisors went through a leadership development program, and we have, on the instruction of board, come up with skills development, targeted skills development programs that are very specific to the needs of the organization and to steer this organization to higher level in terms of the levels of efficiency and what we need to do to make the organization tick. So in a nutshell, that is what it is. And perhaps I would say something on the investment front. We have, if you look into the report, 52% of our investments are in Namibia. And the threshold that we have been given by the regulator or by the legal framework is 45%. But the board has seen it necessary that wherever possible, whereas that if the 45% is what we need to meet as a minimum requirement, that is merely a minimum. We need to do more if we see opportunities that are available and that can answer our asset, strategic asset allocation requirements. So in that respect, we have invested heavily in Namibia. If you were to take 147 billion and you take even just half of that, it means a significant amount of money in Namibia. Some of it in the listed space, and a lot of it also in the unlisted space, that is in the real economy, if you may wish to. There, I particularly would like to highlight our investment in the affordable housing. As of now, as we are talking, we are reaching 7,000 housing units developed in this country, making us perhaps the biggest housing provider. It's not our main business, but we see it as a need and an investment opportunity, and there is a need. And also, it makes us comply with the social responsibility component in terms of the SDGs that so many people talk about. We live these things. Then we look at the issue of educational services. GIPF is invested in various schools. We have committed serious money there, transport and logistics, and then infrastructure and energy. We have become one of the biggest energy investors in this country, providing over 100 megawatts of power. And that is significant. If you were to think about it, that Namibia today relies on plus minus, is it 400, 500 megawatts of power. And we are contributing that significant amount. And we are still counting. The beauty with it is in the clean energy space. That is renewable in terms of the solar. But recently, we even have ventured into wind energy. We are the pioneer investors there, and we are very excited to be part of that. Obviously, after all due consideration and diligence. So that is our story.
You can get very excited about the performance of the fund. But I think, colleagues, let's change gears now and truly allow the colleagues from the media to help unpack us this annual report, more so from that understanding of the populace you report for, who probably have keen interest in some sections of the report that our panelists can help to really unpack and review. So, colleagues, the floor is open for that interaction. Just indicate your house or whether you are an independent person, so that we can just take those questions, and you may direct it to anybody on the panel. The floor is open. And we are also taking comments on the charts for the stakeholders there who are live. Please get typing. Mr. Njavera.
Good evening to the panel, everyone, President, everyone following on the live stream. I'm Njavera from Nuyoma newspaper, reporting on the business section. So according to a report, the Namibian market is still shallow, GIPF level tech, so in terms of limited investment products. So we just wanted to know, are you advising the Namibian market on what to do to improve in this space for you guys to start investing more in that space? The second question is that, what are some of the common cyber risks for the fund? As the board deputy chair is one of the risks. And touching on the FIM Act, what are some of the challenges that GIPF expects to encounter, and what is the overall take on the Act? On my fourth question, what causes the mismatch between the benefits and contributions that CEO has mentioned of? Thank you.
Let's take those four, and please feel free to share in the answers. Where do I start? Okay. Chairperson.
Good, thank you. I take note that there's an interest in what is out there as investment opportunities, the cyber risk, FIM Act, and lastly, why have we experienced a maturity of our fund? I will touch on investment opportunities. I'll also touch on why our fund has matured, and the rest of the panelists will touch on cybersecurity and the FIM Act. Let's look at investment. Investments, if you think of it as a subject of interest, you are really looking at opportunities to create wealth. So you're looking at sectors of the economy that if you put money in, you are able to get a return on investment. Fortunately for Namibia, When you unpack the economy as a whole, there are various aspects of the economy where you can gain value. We talked about energy. There is a global crisis of energy around the world over. We can immediately look at our neighbors that have experienced diminished supply of energy for many years. At the moment, they're talking about moving the level to unprecedented levels, I think level 5 of blackout. This is a huge risk for everything that happens in the economy. If you don't have energy, you can forget about growth. So we see opportunities in energy as a sector that we can invest in. The CEO has highlighted the fact that we've been very active in investing in renewable energy, particularly those that are driven by solar support and of late the wind. We also recognize that there are other energies that are coming on board that will offer a sustained supply. Hydrogen is one of them, and of course the huge discoveries of oil and gas offshore Namibia, they also present opportunities for investment. So energy is a key sector of interest for investment. Agriculture is one of them. Agriculture is also another key sector for opportunities for investment. Housing, we've demonstrated that we are very exposed to the housing sector, but we also know that we haven't yet met the existing demand. So housing is another area that we see opportunities. Logistics is another area where we see opportunities. People that have interest in the logistics business, the economy is driven by having vibrant logistical support. Manufacturing is one area of key interest as well. We cannot continue as an economy export jobs. When you invest outside the country, you are literally exporting job opportunities. You are, all that you are getting is very little. It's a return on investment. That's what you get. But if you invest domestically, you manufacture, you add value, you create employment, you pay taxes, and you improve the living standards of the country. Health is another area. There are huge opportunities for investment in health. We are also exposed in the health sector. COVID also opened up lots of opportunities. There was a time in point when oxygen was in short supply, just because we are dependent on external markets. So those areas, I'm unpacking them, but those are the areas where we see growth and encourage Namibians that have investment ideas that will generate wealth to look into them and work with our fund managers who will then undertake the necessary review and consider them for investments. While I'm at this point, I want to emphasize the fact that we are investing pension money. The money that we are investing is pension money of government of Namibia's employees. The chair of the audit committee is emphasizing the fact that as we invest, we are going to be strict on governance, because we have an obligation as a board when we invest to recover our full investment and the return on investment that you promised us. At some point, we have a responsibility as the board to ensure that what we promised our members as a pension, we are able to pay. I'll now move to the next item, which is the maturity of the fund. You have rightly recognized the fact that there's a mismatch between the benefits we pay and the income that comes in. This is very common with the type of fund that we have. We have a defined benefit fund. We don't have a DC fund. A DC fund is very easy to administer. Whatever that you have paid in as a pension and the interest that you accrue, when you call the money, you are given that amount. So it's a very clean investment risk return you give it. But at the DB fund, we are promising to pay you a certain amount of money when you retire until you die. We've made that commitment and it's part of our rules. And a couple of other benefits that are very generous. For instance, your spouse, if you die, we are going to continue supporting your spouse. and various other benefits. You can just zoom into our rules to understand the kind of liability that the fund has that we are expected to meet because we are managing a defined benefit fund. What are we experiencing at the moment? The fund is maturing. It is maturing because those that are paying into the fund, and let me put it this way, the value being paid into the fund and the value being withdrawn, the value being withdrawn is higher than the value being paid into the fund. So we've experienced a maturity. This is common everywhere with funds of this nature. We are recognizing this as a challenge for the fund. Right now, we can confidently say we have a mitigating intervention to deal with it. We do have a longevity reserve, which we are able to call and make sure that at any time when we are required to pay pensions, we can meet it. At this stage, the fund is in excess of 9 billion. The report will give you the factual report on it. But as the trustees, we've recognized that our fund has matured, and we need to monitor that risk proactively to ensure that when there is a call by a member to claim their benefit, when they retire, when they resign, when they die, all those benefits that we promise, we are able to meet them. So this is what it means when we say there is a mismatch. It doesn't mean that the fund is not sustainable. We are just recognizing that it has matured. And there are many issues that draw maturity. Previously, a long history, again I'm going further here, is that there was a baby boom. So there were lots of children being born, so the people that were being employed were more, and those that were retiring, the two numbers were matching. But now we are encountering a situation where families are smaller, yet those that were born when the baby boom was up are still around, and they are retiring. And most importantly, the health system is very good. It can support their life. They are living longer. So we've got also an issue of longevity. So how do you navigate the fact that there are few people contributing into the pension fund, whereas there are more people that are withdrawing out of the pension fund? And again, this is a problem common with a defined benefit fund like the GIPF. However, I want to conclude by assuring our members, and these are government employees, again, commenting on that because the GIPF is a pension fund for all those that are employed by the government, that we do have an intervention to mitigate this growing gap by the longevity reserve, which is available that we can call and use. However, as the board, we've recognized this as a risk to the fund. We've escalated it to our new strategic plan, which we are currently drafting, so that we monitor it at all material times. I've touched on the two areas, and I'll yield back to the facilitators, so that the matter on cyber security and the FIM Act can be, they can comment on it.
Okay, I think I'll turn to the Vice Chair for the cyber security this question.
Thank you, Edwin, for allowing the opportunity to address those two questions. The cyber attacks experienced by the GIPF is mainly phishing attacks. We receive around about over 50,000 emails per day, and our systems have to be robust enough to deal with those attacks on our systems. So it's quite a lot of for an organization like us. Phishing attacks is an attack prompting you to click on an email and taking you to a different website to extract information from you, posing as the original website. So that is quite prevalent here, something that we deal with. But our IT department is embarked on the latest technology, ensuring that we have proper firewalls in place to deal with such an attack. We've thwarted many of those phishing attacks. At one stage, the GM Finance and the CEO was also targeted, especially on the signatures, but we thwarted them. So it is something that we look closely as a committee. We get the statistics every quarter from our IT department, and we ensure that our, besides having the firewalls, that our employees are made aware through training videos that we have on a monthly basis, to ensure that we know what to look for, what to click on, what not to click on. There is awareness around the GIPF to ensure the safety of our data. Of course, we invested tremendously in the 21-22 year in upgrading our software, but also replacing some of our older infrastructure, IT infrastructure. It makes us vulnerable when the infrastructure is old and the software is old, which means that we cannot deal effectively with cyber attacks. But up to now, we've thwarted all of them. We are busy upgrading our systems, both on the software and hardware side, so that we can stem those. And you are never fully bulletproof. These perpetrators are always one step ahead of you, so we need to be very diligent when dealing with things and ensure that our systems remain as new as possible. It costs us a lot of money. It contributes to the high cost to serve ratio, but it is needed. We can't live without that. Can you just repeat the Firm Act question?
What is the challenges that GIPF expects from it and the overall audit?
From the audit side point of view, for us it's more the challenge of the shortened reporting time. So we have to, in terms of the new Firm Bill or Act, report within 90 days to the regulator our financial report and results. Currently, it's around about 6 months. So you can imagine that if we have the report now in 90 days, from March, that gives you, end of June we have to report. It's quite a very short space. It will take tremendous effort from us to produce our financial results in that space. And the board has realized that and has come up with innovative ways to address it. We have, as from last year, embarked on an interim audit whereby we already start the audit early January for up to December results, so that the bulk of many of the transactions are already audited by the auditors, leaving us with the year-end audit when it starts only with a few months, January till March. So that is one of the things that we have implemented to see to it that we stay within that. CEO, I don't know whether you want to talk about the other aspects of the Act.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Mr. Kisting, for Chairperson for responding to the questions. And that's what I'm talking about when I said we have board with us. Regarding the FEMA, first of all, let me just put it in context that currently governed as pension funds, not only GIPF, by the 1956 Pension Funds Act. 1956, I think none of us in this room were. It's a long time ago, well before the realities of today have emerged. So it is just responsible that statutory authorities review the legislative environment and make it current so that it's able to respond to the realities of today. Obviously, we have got used to do things in a particular manner, and change is not always appreciated because it disrupts what we used to know. But there are certain realities we have to deal with. Obviously, we have to look at the reasonableness thereof too. And the challenge with FEMA, obviously to us as GIPF, as the biggest tree in the forest, it assumes that we are all the same size. And to us, that is the biggest challenge. Like the chairperson of the audit committee have highlighted, that reporting requirement, I'm not so sure is practical enough. Obviously, we'll give it a shot because we need to comply, and we want to comply. There are so many other elements in there that we believe, as GIPF specific, they will give us all sorts of challenges, including the issue of election of workers' representatives, where there is a requirement with regard to workers, to be 50-50 and to be directly elected, unless I've read something wrong there. You can imagine GIPF with a membership of 145,000. I don't know which electoral commission we'll have to appoint to do that. It will give us logistic nightmare. So some of those details can give us all sorts of practicalities. Requirement to make available annual reports and other reports physically to people, to members. Obviously, if you have a membership of 20, 30, or 100, or even 500 is nothing. You can imagine the cost implications of all these things if we have to do prints in that way. Not all our members have access to multimedia or to through the, like you have in your hands right now. So it will give us challenges. We have to see how that goes. And I hope there will be an element of understanding of the need to be practical about all these things. If I have to go deep into it, FEMA is a big document. We'll be here all night and for the rest of the week.
Thank you very much, CEO. Erastus?
Yes, thank you. I have also six questions here. I will start with the investment side. Yes, the team highlighted that yes, most of the opportunity in Namibia are around energy, housing, and the healthy sector. And if you look at that sector, we have few listed companies. So that means that these opportunities are in the unlisted space. And if you look now, we have a cap, we have a threshold that we cannot go beyond a certain threshold according to the regulatory framework that exists. So how are you going to maneuver that limitation to go more in these unlisted space where the opportunities are? So that is my first question. Then my second one is regarding ESG. GIPF is the biggest in our economy, so we influence where the money is. So in terms of complying to the ESG, I know the Arabic Prosperity, the second one, it was even given a directive that the country should draft its own ESG framework for the private sector to adopt. And I also know that GIPF is one something internally. We just wanted to know how you are trying to influence your more than 20 investment managers or unlisted investment managers to go on the ESG route. Then, maybe just something also maybe some people might be interested. Also, if you look at the management fees, they've also increased. they've also quite increased. Maybe just also to elaborate what is causing or what is pushing up the cost. Data on data. Yes, as the Vice Chairman indicated that yes, you are doing great in terms of containing the risk which is emanating from data. But if you look at what has last year transpired is that some of the data breaching came from internally. And that actually have a big impact in terms of your asset liability model if you are not going to be fed with realistic statistical data of your people. So maybe just also to touch on that and to give us something how you are going to contain the internal issues rather than just focusing on the external one, if we can add to that. And domestic asset requirement, you did so well now to go beyond the 45, which is really, really commendable. And I'm just going to come back to that asset manager, if it can also be used to influence either the regulatory to change the threshold if you are going to, not for you to be so overexposed just to the listed space of things. Then lastly now, what is your comment on the 75% provision, which the public are either fighting? Maybe just for GIPF to comment, because if I'm looking at your statistics there, they are indicating that in terms of your payment to those who have resigned, it also increased. Transfers have also increased, and also your transfers in terms of cash have also increased for those who have resigned. Looking at that it also have an impact in terms of the 75% provision in FEMA. Then last one on the biometric. We have seen that the public are somehow, to a certain extent, unwilling to give biometric information. So how are you handling that? And given that the fact that you really, really have to have this information in terms of ensuring that whoever you are paying is the right person, given the resistance from the public, how are you handling or how are you convincing the public to give you biometric where there is no law or any provision that can ask them to give you this information or this data? Thank you.
Quite a basket full of questions. And I guess that's the whole point of unpacking the report. Let's start with investments. Especially the opportunities in the unlisted space. How will we maneuver this? I'm sure you took account of the questions. I don't have to repeat them, but let's start with investments, ESG, all of that. Okay, CEO?
Thank you very much, Erastus, for those questions. Regarding the issue of you see, in terms of unlisted investments, the requirement is that we should a minimum of 1.75, but there is a ceiling of 3.5%. The board has seen in its wisdom already to make a request for an exemption on that score, so that we play a bigger role in the economy. And that was granted to go beyond, is it 7.5? 7.5%. So it gives us latitude for us to be able to invest much more broadly, and in terms of the volumes, also more voluminous. And we are making use of that exemption that we have obtained accordingly. And secondly, on the issue of ESG, yes, the board has crafted and adopted an ESG policy under responsible investment. This was really a formalization of our signature already in 2012 to the UNPRI, which is United Nations Responsible Investment Principles. We were number 1,000 then when we signed up. And we have already then made it a requirement to our fund and asset managers to always consider these principles when they do embark upon any investment. Last year, I think around October, we had a special session with the whole investment community of GIPF. That is, those who are resident in Namibia and international, whether they are asset managers or fund managers, where we were indicating to them and sensitizing them to the provisions of the investment responsible policy of the fund. What is the essence of that really? Is to ensure that when we invest responsibly, taking into consideration the socio-economic sensitivities, the environmental sensitivities, the climate sensitivities, and that we ensure that our generations of tomorrow will also have good space to live in. So in that respect, we are already engaging and have made it part of our agreements when we sign with the managers that they, as they look for investments, they must adhere to those. We have a special dedicated team. In fact, the gentleman sitting in front of you, Keshu Siboleka, he has a team under him. He's the manager responsible for that, to ensure that we monitor the investments made and that they comply with the ESG principles. You mentioned something about management fees. I assume, and you said increase of management fee. The question was not so clear, but what I can say is that management fees did not increase. What we have seen, and there was a deliberate approach or strategy to engage all our fund managers and asset managers to look at, considering that the asset base has been growing, what they have under management, whether we cannot have reduction. And I can say we have successfully engaged, especially our major fund and asset managers, on reduction. And there are phases in which we go, when it comes to fund managers in the private equity space, that at certain points, when they are no longer searching for investment but merely maintaining the investment that they have, we always negotiate a downward investment fee. And that we have affected, and it has become a practice to us. Well, on the issue of data, and you referred to incident where we had incident of fraud. Yes. And one thing that I can tell you, human beings are human beings. They are very good. And really, really good. But then there are always those areas where we have temptations. And what makes it more difficult is if your doorkeeper is the one who allows the thief to come in. Just imagine, Erastus, at your house, that I don't know whether you have a bull terrier that guards you or whether you have a doorkeeper or whatever. But what keeps the door, that one that you rely on is the one that opens it. It becomes tough. But what have we done when that happened? It was an element of collusion. We have then immediately, within 24 hours, changed the doors. We changed the locks. And we changed the modus operandi so that we do not have a repeat. And we have got our internal audit team to audit it to make sure that what we have now, we can comfortably assure our trustees as well as our stakeholders that what have happened cannot happen again. And important is that court, whoever going to pay the price of what of things. On the issue of preservation, that is now with regard to the requirements of the draft film. As you know, that matter has been withdrawn for now. It's under review. The Minister of Finance, who's of the FEMA, have seen to withdraw that matter. From our side, we went on a survey of our members' opinions and to understand how they feel about it. But most important is to educate what it's all about. Because sometimes when information is out there and you don't have the full picture, you form a specific perception. And it is necessary that, it was necessary that we share the correct information so that the correct perception is formed. Which way will it go? The jury is still out there. As you know, there was a committee of eminent persons that was appointed by the Honorable Minister to look into that and to collate all the information. I assume us included will then make a recommendation, and the appropriate authorities will then entertain what to do, what is in the best interest. That's really the way it is at the moment. On the biometrics, thank you very much that you've asked that question. My first remark on that is that I would like to encourage all our members, to those who have not yet enrolled, to do so as soon as possible. We have a deadline of the 28th of February, and that deadline remains unchanged. It is necessary to re-enroll so that you are able to be counted as a member of the fund. Otherwise, you will not be counted, and we assume as of today, 35,600 re-enrolled. We have a deficit of just over 9,000. I would like to encourage those to come forward. I've also noticed that in those who have re-enrolled, 35,000, 21,000 are female. Only 14,000 men came forward who are our members. I don't know what they are doing. If they are on a retirement, what is it that you are doing, gentlemen? Tatekulus, all the Grootmen said, the money, they must come forward. And that deficit is almost explained by men not coming forward. It's because your livelihood depends on that income that you get from GIPF. Please come forward, and we meet when we say 28th of February is the deadline. We have allowed this space merely because we need to do so. But the door is open for fraud. Not allow of the request. I can say safely that with GIPF we haven't experienced that. It's not the first time. We all along had a biometric system with fingerprinting. But what we are doing now, we added facials. Do you know why? in order to avoid conduct in event we have a pandemic like the one we had now. The point of printing the finger thumb on the machine can become a risk. But with the facials, you don't need to print. It's merely to look into the camera and it will tell, yes, indeed, you are a member. Or you look into your own mobile device and then it will be able to register accordingly. So in that respect, we would like to say it is safe. Your information has always been with us. Anyway, you need the money. It's your money, but for your money to be paid correctly, we must know it's you. Otherwise, how would we know? So that is really with respect to the issue of biometric. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think also, just to add to that, at the end of the day, we will also be able to know whether really we were dealing with the right numbers or not. It's also part of the cleaning up process. Sir, any questions from you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is O'Brien Smith, journalist for the brief. Basically, I'm not sure if I'll be deviating from the whole financial report here, but I was just intrigued just to ask, I think last year there was a report that GIPF was claiming some amount from Stenhoff Group South Africa. So I think earlier last year there was, I think, 326 million that was, I think, reportedly recovered from, I think, I'm not sure, they also need clarity whether it was a total investment of around 670 something million there. Have you perhaps made some progress in recovering the whole amount, or where are we now? And then also, I think you initiated a legal claim, where I think you were claiming around about 729. Can we also please get an update of how far is that process and how much have probably been paid from this claim if successful? Thank you.
What's the second question?
The second question is on the legal claim that was initiated. Legal claim.
Legal claim.
Against Stenhoff?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Of around 729 somewhere.
So I think the CEO can take that
Okay,
one.
CEO, if you can
We
take
should
that.
have a factual.
Maybe just to
Okay.
also considering this risk also that we see, and I'm sure you have made some other steps that you have put in place. How are you going to make sure again? Maybe if I don't know if you covered that part before I joined the meeting. But what measures have you actually put in place to make sure that all your investments going further into the future are actually secured, all the risk is minimized?
No, thank you very much, O'Brien. Yes, the unfortunate incident of Steinhoff, which lost value, and this is not a GIPF restricted issue, it is a market issue. In other words, most of pension funds and institutional investors who were invested, especially on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, suffered the reduction in value because of that. That was already factored in our annual financial statement of the year when that incident happened. It's about 5-6 years ago or so. What have we done? We immediately also then took upon ourselves to see, first of all, engage with the fund asset managers who were involved and to investigate whether there was any form of negligence from their side, considering the movement of Steinhoff, the management of Steinhoff, and all these things. We did an investigation, and some of that investigation, we still have engagement with some of those asset managers. Now, in terms of the recovery, well, the investors decided to form in unison an approach through a legal claim. And that legal claim, in terms of progress. It has made substantial progress. Values, I don't have, unfortunately, the value with me right now, how much was agreed at the end of the day to be refunded, but we are in the queue. That will also be a beneficiary. We are constantly, our legal machine is hard at work to make sure whatever value we lost during that time is refunded or recouped. And so that process is still ongoing. It's an international process. It started in Europe, and then it came to the courts in South Africa, because Steinhoff has got an international wide span. What are we doing to reduce these risks? Immediately when it happened, and we engaged those fund asset managers that were involved, they also then had to deploy mechanisms of monitoring the investments in which they do, to make sure that on a regular basis they are certain in terms of the audit work that is being performed. Because here we were being misled through audits, and we, at the end of the day, realized that the audit were played around with, and that the figures that were reported were in fact not necessarily reflecting the reality. So in respect of that, those mechanisms have been put in place to make sure that we do not have repeats. But then you said something that to make sure that investments never, there is never in investments, I would just be realistic with you. All investments that you place, there is always an element of risk. But what is important, what do you do to mitigate these risks? And you then, on the basis of the learnings of history, the learnings of yesterday, you devise new mechanisms of protecting yourselves. And that is, including even ourselves here, we have honed up our skills to be able to have greater insights and monitoring of the investments that we do. The gentleman you are sitting next to there is managing our investment back office, where they analyze, having brilliant, good minds there, young minds, that make sure that they understand the between the lines, they understand the dots, they understand the commas, and most importantly, the figures, whether they read correctly. So that is really what we are doing, and we'll continue to always improve on how we do things. What was yesterday would not be tomorrow. Thank you.
Maybe just a quick one before. Just to be precise here. So you mean to say, so far since that process started, we have only recovered that 326 million, and then that's where we are standing?
What I'm saying is that it's an ongoing process. The claim finalization and delivery thereof is still to be completed.
Thank you very much for those questions. And as we are winding up now, there is a question online, and I will quickly read it. It's from Faith Ohole, and she wants to know, Mr. CEO, kindly elaborate on the pension back home loan. Are we expecting to get home loans straight from the GIPF, or what is the point here? If so, what will be the interest rate benchmark considering the skyrocketing rates trajectory in the banking industry at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question on the pension-backed home loan. And incidentally, today, at the technical level, we were engaging on this matter, that we need to accelerate the official launch of this process, pending only the signatures from other key stakeholders for us to do so. What the fund has done, and the board, what the board has done, is to appoint 2 service providers that will be able to manage this process. How will it work? It's basically, it's meant, the home loan is meant for members to either acquire, renovate, upgrade their dwellings where they live. That's really the essence of it. It's to augment the already available home loan facilities. I know, for example, most of our members, they are part of the Public Service Commission, where there are home loans guarantees provided. And this is really to augment what is there. It may not necessarily be a full answer. There are other provisions in the market that can deal with that. So, in respect of the interest rate for pension funds are regulated. And we would have to abide by those. So, that is a rate of, what is the rate again? Yeah, what they call repo plus 4, which is close to prime. Not exactly prime, but close to prime. But it is as per regulation. But what is very important is the access to the loan. Here you have now this access through your own pension fund accrual benefit that you can access. And that is really what is important with this. And we'll make available all the information required so that members are clear what is it, how, and where, as soon as all the signatories have been put to paper.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have now drawn to a close. And what I will do in closing, I will allow the panelists just final remarks if you have any. And I will start with Mr. Kisting, and then I will come to the CEO so that the chairperson can close by also officially really launching this report after all this unpacking and review we have done. Mr. Kisting.
Thank you, Mr. Shiramba. I think it's important to close off with the financial results from my side. The GIPF fund is solvent. The efficiency ratio is 113.89%, which means that the fund is financially sound. It can meet its obligations as it occur. The fund is done tremendously, despite the fact that COVID occurred in the 2019-2020 years. The investments has recovered tremendously from COVID levels of 109 billion to the current value of 147.9 billion at the end of 31st March 2022.
21. 22, yes.
Your funds are in good hands. As directors, as trustees, we are caution how we manage your funds and how we invest it. We are here to grow your funds, but at the same time protect the funds so that over a long period of time you will still be able to receive the benefits that are due to you or to your spouses or to the beneficiaries that you have nominated. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. CEO.
Thank you very much. What can I add after such an eloquent presentation? Merely to say that from an operational side of things, management and staff remain fully committed to ensure efficient service delivery, and would always like to have feedback from our members as you encounter our engagement with you, to please share with us where we need to improve. That is always welcome. It's on the basis of that where we can grow where we can see here we are not doing well, therefore we have to improve. But the commitment is 110%.
Thank you, CEO. Last but definitely not least, saving the best for last, Chairperson of the Board.
Thank you very much, Edwin, and to our listeners, the media. Let me start with you. Thank you very much for participating in this event physically. Your questions that you've asked here tonight are very important because they also assist us to answer pertinent questions that the public would have an interest in. So we implore you, as you go back and report, please report factually. I'm very proud that not only did we deliver an unqualified audit opinion, but also it's an integrated report. It means that we have taken time as the GIPF, not just to provide the numbers, but also to provide comprehensive information about our operations as the fund. We encourage you to use this tool to obtain data, assess it, and then you can report factually. It's actually your Bible. Everything that we knew about the financial year which just ended, we took the trouble to make sure that we avail it under this report. So use it factually. Fellow trustees that are not here, Chair Audit, who's also the chairperson of the board, thank you very much for partaking in this process. And of course, the CEO. We are very proud as the board. The board is thanking, the CEO is thanking the board, but we want to thank the CEO. Managing a fund this size is complex. Auditing it is very complex because of the nature of our investments. So when we are raising a matter of concern that will be required to audit in 3 months, yes, we would attempt to do our best, but we recognize that our audit should be a tool that if you pick it up and you read it, you ask me a number in the middle of the night, I'll be able to tell you because the figures are there. So we're very proud of our finance team. The GM Finance, I don't see him here. They are the team that spends sleepless nights when we have to be audited. So we really thank our staff members for working hard and making sure that as a board, we deliver on our responsibility, which is to make sure that we deliver an audited report that we can share with the public. At this juncture, I am very proud and happy that the report is available, and we hereby officially launch it. It's available on our website. Hard copies are also available. As the CEO said, we are, as the board, always wanting to innovate and do things better. The mantra in the board is we don't want to think outside the box. We want to think outside the building, because then we can make better changes to serve our members. I thank you all.
Thank you very much to our 3 panelists. And that is all we have for you this evening. And maybe just to close off from my side on the biometric side, we currently have 4 teams out in the field, 2 teams in the south, and they started from the very southern point of the country, and another team in the very, very remote areas of Kunene. And they are really targeting the very remote areas of our country and these 2 regions. And every morning there is an announcement on radio where the teams will be. And in about another week's time, we will handle Ochodonjupa, Kavango West, and then Omaheke. Because for us, it's to meet that deadline before the 28th of February. So we are really urging, especially the annuitants in Commerce region. We have 2 offices in Windhoek. One here at the GIPF house, and another one at B1 City in Katutura, opposite the Katutura State Hospital. Please visit these offices during working hours, and then you will be able to enroll. From us at the GIPF, a very good evening to you. Remain safe. Thank you.